Listen to me. If I could put one thing in your hand right now and tell you to press it against your navel, against the very center of your being, every curse in your life would shatter instantly. And I'm not talking about superstition, I'm talking about revelation. Because the truth is this, the curse is not on you, it's in what you've been agreeing to, repeating, and carrying at your core. The navel is where life began. It was your first connection to nourishment, to breath, to existence itself. And yet, so many of us let that center get hijacked by fear, by guilt, by the voices of people who don't even have the authority to define us. You've been walking around with other people's curses tied to your navel, tied to your identity, and you wonder why you feel drained, broken, or bound. But here's the revelation. What you place on your navel becomes your life source. If you place anger there, everything in you gets poisoned. If you place comparison there, you'll always feel less than. But if you place peace there, if you place truth there, if you place divine detachment there, suddenly curses collapse. Because no curse can survive in a soul that refuses to feed it. Detachment is not coldness. Detachment is not carelessness. Detachment is strength. It is saying, I will not let your storm rewrite my center. Detachment is the unshakable confidence that even if you walk out on me, even if the deal falls through, even if the world misunderstands me, I remain whole. I remain untouchable. Every curse you've been fighting has been fed by your attachment to it. The curse of needing their approval. The curse of needing closure from someone who was never meant to give it. The curse of defining yourself by a moment you should have already forgiven. Those curses don't break when you shout louder. They break when you stop feeding them. Your navel, your center, is too sacred to be owned. By rejection, by shame, or by fear. That's why the most powerful thing you can do today is put detachment right there, in the middle of your being. Put peace there. Put purpose there. Put truth there. And watch what happens. Because when you finally stop living for their applause, the curse of insecurity breaks. When you stop needing to control what you can't change, the curse of anxiety breaks. When you stop repeating what hurt you, the curse of your past breaks. And when you stop bowing to the noise of the world, you rise into the voice of God. That is the moment curses end. Not out there, but in here. Not in what they said, but in what you center. And if you get this, if you really let this take root, nothing, no curse, no word, no fear can hold you anymore. The navel is more than a mark on your body. It's the center of your being, the reminder of where life first flowed into you. Before you ever took your first breath, before you even opened your eyes to this world, your navel was the place of connection, where nourishment, oxygen, and vitality were delivered into your body. It was your lifeline. And though the cord was cut, the truth it carries remains. What you allow to feed your center will always determine the quality of your life. Most people live unaware of this reality. They let bitterness, fear, comparison, or other people's opinions become the invisible cord feeding their soul, not realizing they are choosing their source every day. The navel represents the core of your identity, your inner atmosphere, the silent agreement of your soul with either life or death, blessing or curse. When something lodges itself there, an unhealed wound, a constant craving for validation, a secret shame, it doesn't just stay hidden, it multiplies. The body remembers, the spirit carries it, the center feeds it. And over time, curses are not the strange words spoken against you from the outside. They are the beliefs you've allowed to be planted and watered at your core. But the beauty of this truth is that you also have the authority to change what sits at that center. What you place at the center of your life has the power to either curse you or free you. Every person carries a core belief that quietly governs how they live, how they think, and how they respond to life's pressures. That belief becomes the compass, the hidden fire in the middle of their being. For some, that center is rooted in fear, so every decision becomes an attempt to avoid pain. For others, it's rooted in insecurity, so everything they do is filtered through a desperate need for acceptance. And for some, It's rooted in anger or revenge, and their entire life becomes a reaction instead of a creation. This is how curses live, not because of an outside force pressing down, but because of what we elevate as the foundation within us. If your center is built on what people think of you, then your peace will rise and fall with every compliment or every criticism. If your center is built on possessions or achievements, then you'll always live with the curse of never having enough. But if your center is anchored in something unshakable, in truth, in divine wisdom, in the assurance that you are already enough, then nothing outside of you can undo what lives within you. Every curse is tied to what you've allowed to define your core. That's why some people walk into freedom without chains on their hands, but still live imprisoned in their minds. And that's why others, even when surrounded by storms, carry a calm that cannot be touched. The difference is what sits at the center. When you choose peace, gratitude, and purpose as your foundation, you break every curse of fear, lack, and comparison. The center you choose decides the life you live. Detachment is one of the most misunderstood strengths a person can develop. People often mistake it for apathy, indifference, or a lack of care, but that's not what it is. Detachment is not about shutting down your emotions. It's about reclaiming authority over them. It is the decision to stop allowing outside circumstances, shifting opinions, or unpredictable relationships to dictate your inner state. Detachment is not about walking away from love, responsibility, or passion. It is about walking away from the illusion that your worth depends on anything outside of you. When you are attached to outcomes you cannot control, you live in constant anxiety. When you are attached to people's approval, you live in constant fear of rejection. When you are attached to the past, you carry chains that rob you of the present. But when you practice detachment, you create space. Space for clarity, for discernment, for true peace. You stop handing the keys of your soul to people who may not know how to hold them. You stop letting temporary emotions drive permanent decisions. You stop giving power to situations that were never meant to own you. Detachment doesn't weaken your love, it purifies it. It allows you to love freely without needing to control, to give without needing to be validated, to show up without losing yourself. It's the quiet strength of knowing that whether someone stays or leaves, whether the opportunity comes or goes, whether you are praised or criticized, you remain whole. That is real freedom. Detachment is not about not caring. It's about caring from a place of strength instead of desperation. It's the shield that protects your energy, your calling, and your purpose from being drained by things unworthy of your center. Every curse is not some external force floating in the air waiting to land on you. More often, the curse takes shape in the silent agreements you make within yourself. It is the whisper you accept as truth, the fear you rehearse until it feels permanent, the bitterness you replay until it becomes part of your identity. A curse doesn't have to be spoken over you by someone else. It's born the moment you internalize a lie and give it a home at your center. That's why so many people feel bound without ever seeing chains. Their bondage is invisible, tied to what they've believed about themselves for years. Think about it. Rejection is painful, but it becomes a curse only when you start agreeing that you're unworthy. Failure is temporary, but it becomes a curse when you let it redefine your identity. Words are powerful, but they only carry life or death if you decide to let them take root inside of you. What you continually feed with your focus and attention multiplies, and that multiplication is either blessing or curse. The danger is not the wound itself, but the agreement you make with the wound. You can experience heartbreak and still heal, but the curse begins when you keep repeating, "I'll never be loved again." You can lose a job and still rebuild, but the curse takes hold when you say, "I'll never succeed." The curse is not in the event, it's in the story you attach to the event. This is why awareness is so powerful. The moment you recognize that you've been agreeing with lies, you can break the contract. You can choose not to sign your name to fear anymore. Every curse loses its grip the moment you stop feeding it with your agreement. True freedom begins when you stop living on the diet of other people's approval. Approval feels good, it feels affirming, but when it becomes the oxygen you breathe, you become dependent on something you can never control. One day, people praise you, the next they criticize you, one moment they love what you do, the next they dismiss it. If your worth is tied to that cycle, your peace will always rise and fall with the unpredictable tide of human opinion. That is not freedom. That is bondage dressed up as validation. The danger of craving approval is that it slowly erodes your ability to hear your own voice. You start silencing your convictions to maintain applause. You begin shaping your life around what will please others rather than what is aligned with your true calling. Over time, you lose sight of who you are because you've been too busy auditioning for roles you were never meant to play. This is how the curse of insecurity is fed, through constant dependence on affirmation that was never meant to sustain your soul. But the moment you decide that your identity is not up for negotiation, everything shifts. You no longer need to prove your worth because you already know it. You no longer need to perform for attention because you understand that attention is not the same as love. You no longer hand your peace to the fragile hands of others because you've chosen to anchor it in something eternal. Approval may still come and rejection may still happen, but neither will have the power to define you. That is freedom. The kind that can't be manipulated, can't be stolen, and can't be broken. Because it doesn't live in their opinion, it lives in your center. Emotional detachment is not weakness. It is one of the strongest shields you can carry in a world that constantly tries to pull you apart. It doesn't mean you feel nothing, and it doesn't mean you stop caring. What it means is that you've built a boundary around your peace, a guard around your spirit, and a filter for what is allowed to reach your core. Without detachment, every insult becomes a wound, every disappointment becomes a collapse, and every shifting emotion of others becomes the climate you live in. But with detachment, you remain steady even when the storms rage around you. This shield protects your energy from being drained by people who thrive on chaos. It protects your purpose from being derailed by distractions that are loud but not important. It protects your divine assignment from being suffocated by temporary emotions or fleeting approval. Detachment is not running away from responsibility, it's standing in responsibility with clarity. It's saying, I will show up with love, but I will not be consumed by your storm. I will care for you, but I will not hand you the keys to my soul. When you practice detachment, you begin to live with a higher vision. You see beyond the urgency of the moment. You stop reacting to every provocation because you understand not every battle deserves your energy. You realize that peace is not passive, it's powerful. Detachment keeps you rooted in purpose, anchored in truth, and aligned with wisdom. And that shield is not just protection, it is freedom. Because once you know how to detach without disconnecting from love, you can move through life untouched by curses, untouched by manipulation, and untouched by anything designed to break you. The curse of comparison is one of the most subtle yet destructive traps you can fall into, and it always begins at the center. The moment you shift your focus from who you are to who someone else is, you hand over your peace. Comparison convinces you that your worth is measured against another person's journey, gifts, or timing, and because you are not them, you start to believe you are less. That lie grows roots at your core, and suddenly you are no longer living your own life. You are chasing shadows. But here's the truth. Comparison is a curse that feeds on your agreement. It has no power until you give it permission to sit at your center. The moment you anchor yourself in your own calling, the curse begins to break. You realize you were never meant to run their race, hold their gift, or carry their story. Your center is unique, your assignment is distinct, and your timing is divinely designed. What drains you is not what they have. It's your attachment to the idea that what they have is somehow more valuable than what you carry. When you return to your center, you stop measuring your worth against theirs. You begin to celebrate without competing. You learn to admire without diminishing yourself. You can finally honor the success of others without questioning your own path. That is when comparison loses its grip. The curse collapses because it has no more fuel. your navel, your center, is too sacred to be tied to someone else's story. The moment you place your identity back in your own divine calling, you break free, and in that freedom, you discover that your life has never been late, never been less, and never been lacking. It has only been yours. What you carry in your soul is always heavier than what anyone can place on your shoulders. The burdens people hand you, deadlines, expectations, responsibilities, those can be managed, lifted, or delegated. But the weight you store inside your heart, the bitterness you refuse to release, the guilt you replay, the fear you nurture, that is the weight that bends your back and steals your strength. The outside world can only crush you if the inside world is already collapsing. So many people believe their exhaustion comes from circumstances, when in reality it comes from the unhealed loads within them. They are carrying anger that was never spoken, words that were never forgiven, dreams that were buried under shame. That inner cargo becomes a curse because it travels with you into every room, every relationship, every opportunity, and unlike external weights, no one else can lift it for you. Only you can decide to release it. The truth is, what is unprocessed becomes what is unbreakable. If you don't deal with it, it will deal with you. If you don't release it, it will control you. But when you begin to face what's inside, naming it, detaching from it, surrendering it, you immediately lighten your load. Suddenly, things that once felt impossible feel bearable. Not because the outside changed, but because the inside shifted. This is why detachment matters so deeply. It's not about abandoning life. It's about refusing to carry what is not yours. You cannot walk freely into purpose if your soul is chained with hidden weights. The heaviest curse is always the one you carry silently. And the moment you lay it down, the moment you let your soul breathe, you step lighter, stand taller, and finally move in the strength you were always meant to have. Confidence is not the loudest voice in the room. It is not the person demanding attention, nor the one constantly reminding others of their worth. True confidence is quiet, steady, and unshakable. It is the calm presence of someone who no longer negotiates their value with anyone. When you carry that kind of confidence, you don't need to prove, persuade, or perform. You simply are. And that presence speaks louder than any words ever could. The mistake many make is confusing noise with strength. Insecurity often disguises itself as arrogance, as over-explaining, as trying too hard to be seen. But genuine confidence doesn't chase recognition, it attracts it naturally. When you know who you are, when you are anchored in your center, there is no urge to convince anyone else. Whether people applaud you or ignore you, your worth remains the same. That is power, the kind of power curses cannot penetrate. Quiet confidence comes from detachment, from letting go of the need to be validated, from releasing the grip of comparison, from refusing to let rejection define you. It comes from the internal decision that nothing external can alter your identity, and when you stand in that truth, people feel it. They may not be able to explain it, but they recognize it. This kind of confidence carries peace. It is the silence that doesn't feel empty but full. It doesn't rush, doesn't panic, doesn't bend under pressure. It moves with clarity and purpose. And in that stillness lies its strength. Because real confidence isn't about being untouchable on the outside. It's about being unshaken on the inside. It's the assurance that even if everything else shifts, the center of who you are remains unmovable. That is the confidence that breaks every curse. The greatest battles you will ever face are not fought in boardrooms, classrooms, or even in the conflicts with people around you. The battlefield is not out there, it's in your center, your navel, your core. It is the place where thoughts are born, where beliefs take root, where identity is either strengthened or dismantled. Every curse, every fear, every insecurity begins in that inner space. And if you lose the battle within, it won't matter what victories you gain outside, you will still feel defeated. Most people think their struggle is with circumstances, with people, or with opportunities they missed. But the truth is, those are only symptoms. The real fight is over what you choose to believe about yourself, what you decide to carry, and what you allow to sit at your core. If your inner world is chaotic, no amount of outer success will bring peace. But if your inner world is aligned, no amount of outer pressure can undo you. This is why protecting your center is so vital. The enemy of your soul doesn't need to take your possessions, your status, or even your relationships. He only needs to corrupt your core. Because once your center is compromised, you begin to sabotage yourself. But when your center is anchored in truth, curses lose their grip. Fear becomes noise instead of a master. Doubt becomes a passing shadow instead of a chain. The real war is always internal, and the victory is always internal. It is won the moment you decide that nothing, no lie, no rejection, no curse, has the right to own your center. Once you win there, once your inner battlefield is conquered, everything outside of you begins to align with the strength of who you've become within. To break a curse, you must first stop rehearsing it in your thoughts. The mind is the stage where blessings or curses are performed daily, and whatever script you repeat becomes the reality you live. Every time you replay that rejection, you reinforce the lie that you're unworthy. Every time you revisit that failure, you deepen the belief that you're not capable. The memory itself is not the curse, it's the repetition of it, the constant feeding of it that keeps it alive. What you meditate on, you magnify, and what you magnify becomes the atmosphere of your soul. This is why so many people remain trapped even after years have passed since their wound. They've healed physically, but mentally they keep replaying the moment as though it happened yesterday. That rehearsal is what chains them, not the event itself. A curse is simply a loop, an unbroken cycle of agreement with fear, shame, or bitterness. And as long as you keep running the loop in your mind, the curse has a place to live. The way out is not to erase the memory, but to rewrite the script. You choose to stop rehearsing the lie and start rehearsing the truth. You choose to replace, not just resist. Every time the old thought rises, you refuse to feed it with your attention. You declare a new story, you build a new pattern, and with each repetition of truth, the old loop weakens until it no longer has power over you. The curse doesn't break with time, it breaks with choice. The moment you decide to stop rehearsing what hurt you and begin rehearsing what heals you, the chains fall. The mind that once imprisoned you becomes the same mind that sets you free. Detachment is not emptiness, it is the clearing of clutter so divine wisdom can flow freely. When your heart and mind are tangled in fear, resentment, or the need for control, your center becomes distorted. You can't hear clearly, you can't see clearly, and every decision feels heavy. This is how curses disguise themselves, not always as dramatic events, but as the noise that drowns out your inner stillness. But when you practice detachment, you create sacred space. You release what was never yours to carry, and in that release, wisdom finds room to breathe. Wisdom does not shout, it whispers, and it can only be heard in the uncluttered spaces of your soul. If you are constantly rehearsing old wounds, you leave no space for new vision. If you are consumed with controlling outcomes, you leave no space for divine alignment. Detachment isn't about losing passion, it's about removing distortion. It allows you to separate truth from noise, purpose from distraction, love from fear. When you detach, clarity becomes natural. You stop reacting and start discerning. You begin to sense what deserves your energy and what is simply bait to drain you. You discover that peace and direction were always available, but they were hidden under layers of unnecessary attachment. This is why detachment feels like lightness. It removes the fog from your spirit. And the beauty of it is this: once your center is clear, wisdom flows without effort. You don't have to chase it, beg for it, or manipulate it. It comes because space has been made. That space is where revelation is born, where curses dissolve, and where purpose takes its rightful place. Detachment is not loss, it is alignment. It's the doorway through which divine wisdom enters and transforms. Everything in your life shifts the moment you realize that the real battleground has never been out there. It has always been in here, in your CO. Enter. Curses are not chains cast from the outside, they are agreements you've carried within, and the power to break them has never been in anyone else's hands. It has always been in yours. The instant you decide what will sit at your core, peace instead of fear, truth instead of lies, purpose instead of distraction, that is the instant curses lose their grip. So guard your center, protect your navel, the place of life, with intention. Do not feed curses by rehearsing them. Do not anchor yourself to comparisons, fear, or shame. Instead, choose detachment. Choose clarity. Choose to remain untouchable at your core. Because when you stand rooted in truth, no curse spoken, no rejection endured, no failure experienced can define you. The strongest message you must carry is this: you are not bound, you are not powerless, and you are not cursed. You are free the moment you reclaim your center. And once you rise into that freedom, nothing in this world, no voice, no opinion, no past, no fear, can break what has already been healed within you.